realize what the date is that I won't see in March. So, I wanted to talk about that a little bit because March is an extremely critical month for us in beekeeping. If we don't do it right in March, that sets the tone for how this whole spring's going. And it may not be a common practice with everybody, but what I'm going to talk about, well, I brought my 2 boxes, is rotating the boxes in the first part of March. And it's essential. We had perfect weather the 2nd and 3rd March last year. And so it made it real easy. And the weather needs to be good because you're going to be doing an inspection on your hive. And you don't want to chill what little brood's in there. But as we progress through the month of February and we're getting in March, what's going on with the bees? What are they doing?
Moving up.
They're moving up, okay? What's that leave you down the bottom box?
Empty.
Now, what you want to do is by the time you get to the later part of March, you want that queen, because she's kicked it in high gear, the pollen's coming in, things are looking good, things are starting to bloom. She's got the signal, the days are longer, she's going to start laying eggs. And so as they move up, they'll run out of room. And we want them up there, and we'll take the bottom box, and it doesn't matter whether you're running a deep and a medium, because they're not going to stay that way forever. But you'll rotate the brood and the queen down to the bottom of the box. And you'll also check, there may be some brood still left in the bottom box, but what you want to try to do is you want to get all the brood down in the bottom box the first part of March. You want to get all your open space in the top box up above. And now is not the time to be putting wax foundation in. You want to make sure, and it should be all drawn comb in that bottom box that they've eaten the honey out of, and you've got plenty of room. And so once that queen starts filling up that bottom box, and that's going to happen really, really, really fast. By the time you get to the 3rd week or 4th week, you could have 8 or 9 frames of brood down there. But they're going to see that open space up above them, and what do bees like to do? They like to carry everything up, carry everything up. So the bees will start moving up, plus this top box, the sun will be shining on and it'll be warmer. But it will give them a sense of space, that they're not crowded, so that on the 1st of April, you're not out there trying to catch your bees out of the trees again. And so I think it's critical, to my way of thinking, there's going to be others out there that tell you it doesn't matter, but I think it does. Bees will pass through that empty box on the bottom to get to the top, and they won't store any honey, they won't do anything, they just pass through it. So that's why it's essential to get them down in the empty box on top, so they feel less crowded. And this should get you almost all the way through to the honey flow. It's going to depend on the year, or honey flow, you just never know. But they won't be crowded come the 1st of April if you're running 2 full-size bees. And you still have lots of options. You get to the 1st of April and it looks like they're getting pretty crowded. You've done your hive inspections. You go and you find a weak colony that made it through the winter. You can take a frame of brood, you can shake all the bees off of it, you can take that brood, make sure it's calf brood, and put over in the weak colony. You're gonna give them another 3,000 bees in a very short order. So I think this is one of the most important things that we can do in the month of April. And I meant to bring my sidewalk chalk. It's something that I came up with this last year. When you're doing that, you can take your sidewalk chalk and just make a number, 6 frames, 5 frames, 4 frames, whatever. Rain will wash it off, it's not permanent. It's easy to reach in your pocket and get your sidewalk chalk out. And you can say S for strong, or M for medium, or W for weak. And it takes you just a couple of seconds. And then if you're doing a paper account or a computer account or anything of that sort, all you have to do is take whatever you're using, walk back down the row and look at the front of the hive and say, okay, that one's got 6 frames. Write it down in your book. And it, to me, has been, I have problems with the bricks, I have problems with the permanent markers on the top of the hive covers and stuff like that. But that's what works for me. And if you don't want to chase your bees out of the weeds, you really have to get aggressive in the month of March. Also, this month, if it warms up, depending on what you want to do, you may want to feed your bees, but it's too early and too cold, for the most part, to put liquid feed on them. And if they're a weaker colony that just barely made it through the winter, it'd be time to put a pollen protein patty on them. And you don't have to give them much, a half a pound will keep them going for quite a while. And supplement those bees. I just found out that Hobby Lobby carries Baker's Fondant. And I'm sure there's other places that do. Fondant is a good feed, but it's still a little cold, and you're worried about putting liquid feed on them. So anyway, if you do that and get your hive in good shape by the end of March, you'll slow down. It's not 100%. There's always going to be colonies that you're going to miss something. They're not going to feel comfortable. They're going to want to leave. They're going to make swarm cells, and they're out the door. But you can save a lot of colonies and have a super strong colony going into the honey flow. And it will help you make a lot more money, honey, plus money, you know. So,
What if you're wanting to do splits?
that's good, thank you, Russell. If you're gonna do splits, it's really important to start now, okay? You wanna monitor and see how much brood you've got. But you actually almost want brood in both boxes, Russell, for the split.
But would you still try to do this flip?
Yeah, I would start feeding early to get them built up, to get the queen going and stuff. And those early splits, I'd make them pretty strong. You know, I'd put maybe 3 frames brood in instead of 2, and a frame of food, and split them, slap the feed on them, and go to it. But you're gonna have to have a strong colony to be able to split them early. And I think, honestly, Russell, that's my goal. You know, I want to get a strong colony by the 1st of April. You can split them, and that way, I want to sell 30 nukes this year, for example. Okay, you're not going to do that without strong hives. And if you don't start early, they're not going to be strong enough to split. And weather's gonna be pretty mild, and you all are starting to see it. I didn't get to the bees today, I got tied up. You start seeing a little pollen coming in today, but the good quality pollen's probably another 2 weeks off, maybe 3, before they'll really get busy and start doing it. And so, they may need some supplement. And I tend to, ran off and forgot it, I brought it last year, but, that Ultra B is a pretty good protein supplement, and that's what it is. It's not pure pollen. They came out with 2 new products that do have pollen in them. And so there are feeds out there that you can put on the bees that'll give them some pollen and make them want to start brooding. But you have to know what your goal is. If your goal is honey production, you're probably not going to want to do that. If you were wanting to split hives, then you're going to want to start feeding them pretty hard to get them to grow and start producing brood so that you can split that brood off and make nukes out of it. So, did I totally confuse everybody? Do you agree with me?
Yes, sir.
Good. That's 2 of us. So, anyway, that's kind of what you need to be doing, and I think you'll help by doing that, keep your bees from swarming the first part of April. You work so hard to keep them alive all winter, especially this winter, to watch those boogers fly off. You know, it just breaks my heart to watch them leave and get up in a 60-foot tree and I can't get to them. But anyway, that's part of beekeeping too. But I got a couple extra minutes. I didn't bring that kit either, but they have a new kit that I bought that just came out at the Bee Expo. It's called Undesirable Brood Odors, something like that, UBO. And it's a kit, and it's kind of like the nitrogen kit. You take a frame of brood, seal brood, it's got a little cup about that big around, and they were spraying nitrogen in it and seeing how many cells were uncapped by the worker bees, and then they would rate that for hygienic behavior off of that. Well, this new one is they managed to capture the odor that's produced by mites in the capped cells, and they're artificially putting that in that small area, and you have to mark the frame and you have to mark the spot, and you spray it, and then you come back in 2 hours and you count the cells that are uncapped, and that will give you a level of how strong they are hygienically, which if you get a really strong hive, then you're moving towards treatment-free beekeeping. And that's kind of where I'm headed. I've got some BSH queens that I bought last year, and unbeknownst to me, I bought some queens from Lappy's Bee Supply that are Saskatraz queens. They're purebred from OHB, Oliveris honeybees out in California. They have thousands of acres that are all geared up to just one breed of bees, so you're 99.99% sure that it's a purebred bee. And they slipped one in on me. They crossed them up, and all those queens are hygienic. So I have a lot more hygienic bees in my hive than I even knew. And I pulled an inspection on one. They're uncapping a lot of cells in here. What the world's going on? And then I went back and did the research, and sure enough, I've been buying hygienic bees unbeknownst to me. So I'm going to use that UBO to analyze the brood and pick the strongest colony to make queens out of, that the strongest hygienic quality to breed queens out of. And I hope to have more VSH queens coming up, and I've got a plan for that too. But anyway, that's been kind of my goal, and so my goal is to start building up earlier. If you just want honey production and you're not into new queen production, you probably don't want to hit them very hard. You just want to kind of make sure that they've got enough nutrition to keep going and stuff like that, and then build up. So.
But either way, you want to rotate the boxes. Is that correct?
I'm sorry.
Either way, you rotate the boxes, regardless of what you're doing.
So.
So I had one question. We have feed on our, food on our hives right now.
Okay.
The fondant.
Fondant.
The fondant.
Yep.
And so if at the beginning of March,
Yeah.
we rotate,
Yeah. You'd move the fondant.
okay, we would move it
Yeah.
down. Okay.
And that will help them. That odor coming from the fondant, especially since it's hive alive, will help draw the bees back up and get them to start working. And they're gonna go, hey, we got a whole brand new house to fill up here when you do that. And so those things, that heat, that box is gonna warm up faster that time of year
Okay.
than the bottom box. So, yeah, I'd rotate my feed. Sure would. You got anything? No? All right. Yes, sir.
Is there a point in time where if you're feeding, I put on 2 sugar boards earlier
Okay.
this week, and that seems to have worked for me. I've got 2 hives that work, they got through the winter okay. But at some point in time, you probably wanna pull those, if there's any of that sugar board that hadn't been consumed, do you wanna pull that off so that let the bees start naturally feeding themselves? April, May, you want that off?
Yeah, you probably want it off. It depends on when the nectar flow hits and stuff like that. When I put sugar up top in the hive, my bees didn't come up to the sugar till late March and early April and didn't use it. They never made it. In fondant, it's different. They started eating fondant in December. And I felt like I had some hives that I felt like were a little light, that I didn't get heavy enough going into winter. And so I started feeding those, there was 5 of them, and I started feeding those fondant early. And I've kind of backed off the sugar, and it does work. People wouldn't do it if it didn't. I mean, it serves a lot of purposes. Too, it draws moisture from the hive, makes the sugar hard, gets it more in a form that the bees can use. You know, it helps keep your hive drier and stuff. And so I think it's gonna vary from operation to operation when they start consuming it. But hopefully, things will just be booming by mid-April. I mean, if we keep getting some rain and stuff like that, and most people that I know is take that sugar and dissolve it in the water and make their sugar syrup.
Interesting. Well,
That's how I've always done it.
I always put a sugar board on in November
Yeah.
when I close them up, and
And
then
it's
I
good
went in and
practice.
checked them. It looked like they consumed the first board pretty well, so I went in and put another one on, because I made enough to keep it in the freezer. So
Yeah.
I'm far from knowing what I'm doing, but,
No,
but
that's excellent to put feed on them, you know, and we all experiment. I started out with sugar. I saw some benefits to Hive Alive, and I started early, a year ago last fall with the syrup. And because in coming towards October, they were awful light a year ago. And I put Hive Alive syrup on them, and Hive Alive has a lot of benefits. Within 10 days, I could feel a difference in the hives. I mean, they just sucked it down like it was candy, and they put the weight on. They put it in the cells and packed on the winter feed. And so we all try different things, and what works today may not work tomorrow, and what worked tomorrow may work today, you know, it kind of deal. Did you feel like your hives were pretty heavy when you went into winter?
No, I didn't, there was not as much honey,
Okay,
in the frames as I would have liked.
okay,
There was plenty, I left a box of honey on both of them,
yeah.
but,
Well, sugar's cheap insurance, isn't it?
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, John, but like, in the next month or so, the spring buildup, I mean, this is the time that a lot of hives, they make it through winter, they do this.
They really
and they go to
do.
build up,
It's,
and they will burn through all the fruit and stuff.
yeah,
So like this, until there is an nectar flow, it's not a horrible idea to make sure they, you
And
can't
have-
give them liquid feed,
yeah,
make sure they have some.
have all the
Because
nutrition,
they'll really,
yeah.
you get those big boom boxes because they burn through everything you got. If they run out, they just.
It's better to have them too much than not enough, for sure. And like I say, you get into a good flow, take the sugar,
Yeah.
put it in water, make a sugar syrup out of it, you haven't lost anything. And so, you know, I just make sure it works come mid-April and then evaluate pulling the sugar off.
okay, thanks.
Yes, ma'am?
Is it possible for them to have, so like I've got the bottom box and it's like full of bees, and then there's a super that I left on that's full of honey that I left for them. They seemingly haven't touched it, like it's capped honey. Is it possible for them to wipe that out, like you're saying, between now and April?
So what I found is like, at least in my hives, in the cold, they can kind of only be in one place, but when you get these nice warm days, they're going
Spread it out.
all over in the box.
Okay.
And what they've probably done is cleaned out those spots that they were at, which is great for laying babies, but it takes a lot of food for those babies, so they're just gonna start going out and into it. I have struggled with getting them going honey supers for some reason, but my guess will be in the next couple weeks, they're just gonna go. As that pollen comes in and they're like, it's time to make babies, they just.
Cause I've been I'm like, they've got sugar bricks on them, and I did the same as you, I put sugar bricks for the winter, and it worked great. And now I'm like, do I put the pollen on, or I don't know, I think I should wait till I start seeing them bring in pollen? Cause I don't need to like build a bunch of nukes or anything.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've had mixed results with the pollen, it helps build them up.
Right.
Maybe John has a thing, my biggest problem has been, there's always a few small hive beetles that make it through the winter with bees.
Of
They
course.
love those pollen patties, and if you don't,
It's, yeah, you don't wanna feed much more than a half a pound at a time, something that they can consume in a week.
yeah, cause otherwise.
You don't wanna put 3 pounds on there.
They'll sneak right up. As the pollen comes in, like I was showing my daughter, like the maples, and you don't notice it, but there's a lot of trees that flower that don't look like it.
Oh, yeah.
And if you go, I think, everybody's talking about it, anybody watch the bees today, you see this white stuff coming in. Here in a couple weeks, you're gonna see red, and then you're gonna, but they don't really have this nectar. They don't have
Yeah.
a lot of the sugar flow, and that's what the honey and that or the sugar bricks will do. They will be able to put them with the pollen, feed those babies, and that's how you get the big hive going into April, which is when the honey's.
Right, and then it's gonna freeze again in what, another week or so, right? So I'm like, well, doesn't that pollen patty like trick the queen into laying a bunch of eggs, and then they wanna keep it warm, and then it's gonna freeze? And
They've already got, I mean,
or does it
I
matter?
had a hive that didn't make it through the winter, and one thing that you have to understand your hive's doing right now, they started probably at the end of December, beginning of January. They have a small brood nest, and they are anchored to that right now.
Right.
So they will make it bigger, but the bigger it is, it means if they get
The
them
more
3
they
weeks
have to
in,
do.
they'll come out, they have more bees, and then that's how they
Okay.
make it through. So they're already doing that,
Okay,
and the pollen that's starting to come in the next couple of weeks will already trigger them to do it. It's
Okay.
just, do you wanna help them that much more
yeah.
to make a whole bunch of bees?
Okay. Leslie, what is pollen?
It's yellow, I don't know.
No, besides the color. What, okay, let me rephrase it. What does pollen provide the bees?
Isn't it nutrients? I mean, I feel stupid now.
Okay? It's unusual feed. It provides the bees with protein
Protein.
and lipids or fats. And they have to have both for reproduction. They need the sugar for energy, they need the protein and the fats. And a mix of all three of those stimulates the bees, and that's when they start producing brood. And that's why you have to be real careful. And why I was trying to emphasize, you need to know what your goal is before you do anything like that. You got a weak colony, probably need to put some protein patties on them, okay? If you've got a strong colony, they don't need it.
Yeah.
You know, it just depends. It's those famous two words, it depends. But that's what pollen is. And once you see a good pollen flow coming in, that means that the queen is laying eggs and they are producing brood, because they can't do it without. Now, right now, before everybody got here, we were having a discussion about it, about the quality of the pollen that they were bringing in. Bees will collect anything, and it's not necessarily good for them, okay? And they're bringing in a lot of junk just because that's their nature. And you'll find them in bird feeders, you'll find them in chicken pens, you'll find them,
Bird feeder.
you know, yeah. And that pollen's not good for them, but it's something for them to do, and they're carrying it back to the hive. If you look in your tray or on your bottom board, a lot of that's ending up back on the floor. But it gives them something to do, and they're just anxious to get started. I mean, I'm getting calls from my neighbors. Your bees are over here in my pickup, or your bees are over here, and you know, they're just out everywhere looking for something to eat, and it's just not there yet. And that's when you have to decide if you got plenty of honey and the hive's still heavy, then you don't need to feed them anything. If it's small, then you do need to feed them something. And it's just a balance, and what you're trying to do, what you'd like to try to do, is get to the nectar flow with about 6 or 7 frames of bees. And with that about right in there, they're not going to get overcrowded. You'll give them room to move up and take on space. And they probably won't swarm on you, and all that energy will go into making honey, if that's what you're looking for.
And if those frames are still full of honey like they are now, come March,
Yeah.
then swapping them isn't gonna create any more room, because those frames are full of honey, so then would I just need to move those and put empties in there?
If you have drawn comb, I keep talking, drawn comb is gold. I mean, you can do anything if you've got drawn comb. If you don't, if you just have wax frames, it's better not to put those in there till the flow actually starts. When the flow starts, their energy level is so high that they will draw your frames for you. And that's what you need to be doing every year, is you need to draw frames as fast and as much as you can. You can't do anything without them. You just can't. And so
So if
You
her bees are on the bottom right now, theoretically that's where they need to be. And that's what she's
More-
saying, there's bees on the bottom, honey on top, so if she flips them, bees are gonna be on top, honey's gonna be on
And
bottom.
there's no room for them to
But
put
you
brood.
need to add a box.
If they don't
Right,
do
so
that.
would she just add another box?
What I was talking about, maybe it was the 1st of March. Okay, we've got another, basically a month to
Okay.
go before you want to switch boxes. And you want to evaluate them, you want to do a full inspection, you want to see how many frames of brood you got. You got them up, down, both places. When you get to the 1st of March, then you want all your food at the bottom of the box, and you want all your empty frames, what they ate the honey out of, or whatever in the top box.
Maybe an important thing to say, you mentioned at the beginning, the flipping is for the 2 deeps. You're running 2 deeps, you flip them at the beginning. She's running a deep and a honey super on top.
Yeah.
Which I don't
Okay.
think, I don't know if you're getting quite the benefit of flipping those. and-
Your situation's different, a little bit, okay? My student, she's not here tonight, because I was gonna bring her up and make her answer it, but, she got her bees in a medium. That's the way her super came, it was a super medium, okay? So, what we did is we put, pretend that's medium, when they got that medium full, we put a deep on top of it. And I had enough drawn comb that I could put drawn comb in there, okay? When the bees moved up, they had all this room and they took their time. When they moved up and the queen started laying in there, I was in there checking them one day, saw the queen, and I said, okay, now's the day. I took that dude off, put deep on the bottom and put the super on top. The only difference between you can't do it when it's full of honey.
That was
Because
my
you do have to have a place.
for them to go.
Now, yeah, things will change rapidly between the 2nd of February and the 2nd of March.
Okay.
Okay, they really will. They'll be consuming more stores, they're more active, they're flying every day. What are they gonna do when they're flying? They're gonna come back and eat honey because they need the energy to keep flying. So by the time you get to the 2nd part of March, you probably will have that super empty. But if you've got other drawn comb and you've still got some honey, like on the outside of the box, pull those and put drawn comb in, spin them out, and move on. And they'll get you going. And it just takes time and experience, and if you make a mistake, you make a mistake.
Yeah, it's all good. I
And-
mean, we got our bees late last season, so I didn't pull any honey or anything.
And see, that's what concerns me so much. It dried up so quick on us after you all got the bees. By the 1st of June, we were already having a drought. Okay, how are you gonna grow a 5-frame nuke into a full-size hive if they don't have anything to eat?
I fed them.
And, well, you don't have any, no, that's nothing. That's what you've got to do. The goal is to keep the bees alive. The bees alive, okay? All right.
Well, question on that one. So let's say this summer is different, let's say June is fantastic weather-wise, should I still have a feeder on my new?
Okay, I'm sorry, let me focus a little,
So if I get a new nuke in May,
yeah,
and let's say this coming summer is even better than what, better than what was last year, and there's enough pollen and nectar and honey
Yeah.
flow that goes until, let's say, mid-June or late June, should I have a feeder on top of them at that time, trying to build up the nukes, knowing I'm not trying to harvest any honey?
you really need to let nature do everything it'll do, okay? And then if you see a dearth coming on, then I'd put a feeder on.
Very good.
See, if it hits in July and 1st of August, you've got to feed them. I mean, you've got to keep the bees alive. And so there's nothing wrong with it. Now, if you're a purist, if you get into dirt and you got honey on there, pull a honey soup, you know, then put your feed on.
Let me,
Yeah,
you're talking about a nuke in May, right? So one thing that maybe get your opinion, what I've heard about feeding them has more to do with what you were saying earlier about getting all the comb drawn, making sure that they have, nectar is part of what stimulates that. And so you've got a small group of bees, and if you're trying to grow them to full deep, two deeps, that's 5 frames to, 20 potentially, if you're running. It takes a lot, and you're only gonna have kind of a honey throw from May, and then starting in June and July, that's off. So,
Part of what, I'm gonna tell you something that I'm gonna teach in beekeeping class. If you got a 5-frame nuke, for whatever reason, they will grow faster if you keep them and go vertical. Like if you take the bottom off another 5-frame nuke and stack it on top of there, those bees will fill those frames out much, much faster than they will if you put them in a 10-frame box. It's almost impossible to get a nuke to draw out the outside column of frames and get comb, and you have to manipulate them all the time to get them to draw them out. In a 5-frame nuke, and what I'm going to teach is stack them, okay, and you'll fill a 10-frame box and they'll be ready to go into it deep in a heartbeat, compared to trying to get them to fill out a deep. Okay, anything else you want to draw?
I have one more question.
Oh.
Where do people sign up for the class? There's a question on here.
Brian, did you and Sean get anything figured out?
yeah, we'll need to get together afterwards, she gets me the events and all.
Okay. We're having to go through a ticket broker deal, or they did last year, and I don't have a clue about it. We will put out information on getting the tickets and all that stuff as soon as, but, we have people here that are gonna work on that and get that set up so that we'll be able to see it. I hope we have a class of 40. And if we do, I may need some volunteers out of the club that experienced beekeepers to help do inspections with the people that come to the class. Because I'd like to keep it to 4 or 5 people per instructor. So, okay.
And then, quickly, I wanted to mention that one of our awesome members brought some cool freebies. It's like a thing.
There was.
What is that?
Marker?
Oh, for marking queens.
To catch
Oh,
things
that's what it
in.
looks like from
They're
the-
pies.
Some little
They look
high
like
bee
little
little
pies.
traps.
Oh.
She brought, thank you so much. And so if anybody needs little
Those are
freebies.
disposable beetle traps.
Yeah.
I don't like the disposable ones, I like the ones like the clean ones. But those are disposable.
Give me one of them, I'll play with
I
it.
was gonna say,
Okay, she's gonna
Yeah,
draw.
let's do that.
Does anybody wanna see me put a deep together?
Draw one.
If you do, I'll stay. If nobody does, then I won't do it.
actually, I'm not.
But it's interesting, it's different. Go ahead and shut it off when we're done.
Ready for the number?